Well, good noon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Christy Kotek, the Director of Alumni Engagement. Also, I am a proud alumna of Roosevelt too. And welcome to this important discussion today. We are so glad that you are all here joining us and hope that you and your loved ones continue to stay healthy and safe. I do want to share that we do have dedicated time at the end of the hour for questions. So please use the Q&A chat feature once we open the floor for questions. I'd like to introduce our Associate Director of Student Life Equity and Inclusion, Angela Jordan, who will be sharing more about why we are all here today. And she is also going to introduce you to our wonderful guest of honor and moderator. So Angela, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Welcome. Over the past month, the Black Lives Matter movement has swept over our nation as millions joined protests against police brutality and systemic racism. As a belief, you all know, Roosevelt was founded on the principles of equity and social justice. At Roosevelt, we are committed to being a part of the solution to end the violence and injustice perpetrated against Black Americans. Part of the solution, we believe, is having open dialogues like today's discussion to learn and share. Today, we will discuss the impact of recent events and how they have touched our communities and lives. We are honored to have Alderman Stephanie Coleman as our special guest today. Alderman Coleman is the youngest African-American member in the herstory of the Chicago City Council, representing the 16th Ward. Alderman Coleman has been the elected Democratic Committeeman of that ward since 2016, serving the community with distinction and is the Democratic champion in registering the most voters in Cook County. Although known as the Daughter of Englewood, she serves Chicago Lawn, Gage Park, and New City. Alderman Coleman is the founder and CEO of the Sons and Daughters of Englewood. She also served as Vice President of the Morgan Park Advisory Council and is an active participant in the Residents Association Greater Englewood. Alderman Coleman is driven by the philosophy of community, bringing neighbors together by hosting many events such as community picnics and an annual seniors and veterans ball. As a strong proponent of education, Alderman Coleman graduated from Robert Morris University, Illinois in 2007 with a Bachelor of Business Administration, majoring in management and business law, and matriculated to Spertus Institute for Jewish Leadership, graduating in 2014 with a master's degree in nonprofit management. I'd also like to introduce our moderator and guest, Valerie Barker Waller. Valerie is the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of the National YMCA and a member of Roosevelt University Board of Trustees. She is responsible for identifying and creating opportunities to build the Y's brand equity through strategic partnerships and public engagement. She has 27 years of experience in marketing strategy, branding, integration communications, with leadership roles in Fortune 100 companies, nonprofit and civic organizations, and advertising agencies. Valerie came to YUSA in 2016 after 2 years as Vice President of Marketing and Communications for United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. Please join me in welcoming Alderman Stephanie Coleman and Valerie Barker Waller. Valerie, I'll turn the mic over to you to start our discussion.
Thanks so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Alderman Coleman, it's great to be with you today and to have the opportunity to have you share your perspective with the backdrop of everything that's going on in our communities, in our city, and in the nation. I had the great chance to talk with you about your path, and I think that that would be a fantastic place to start. Can you share your path to the seat you sit in today in your community and in this city with everyone?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Valerie and Angela and Christy and the entire Roosevelt University and RMU and this merger and just this collective of great participants on this panel. I'm so honored to be here, just a girl from the south side of Chicago, sharing with you what's going on in the 16th Ward, which is of Englewood, Chicagoland, Gage Park, and New City community. We only have an hour to discuss what's going on, but I must say, when I think about the last 4 months and even how we're communicating right now virtually, I would have never imagined that we weren't together in person and with the students and really seeing the shining faces and those that are achieving their higher education. But COVID to George Floyd, to the looting and the rioting and the peaceful protests. And I like to just say that we have had very peaceful protests led by young people. There has been such a paradigm shift in community and really understanding and really the unity in our community and changing the narrative of that. I think that it's the proudest moment when I think of all of the last 4 months, what has happened in my community personally, that we have really come together and show the true unity and pride for our neighborhood. And I say neighborhood because on the South Side, we're known as the hood, but we're a neighborhood that have come together addressing those devastations and the disparities of the crime and what has affected our small businesses, our children and the school closing, like so many ideas and so many solutions have come out of this situation. So I'm just excited, and we know that 16th Ward is rising together.
All right. Sorry, we're having a little bit of a technical challenge with the host muting and unmuting, so sorry for that. So there's a lot going on in our communities. It'd be great to unpack a little bit of that, right? So there's, COVID-19 and its disproportionate impact on Black and Brown communities, the economic impact of this incredible pandemic as it relates to jobs and small businesses, the social unrest that we're seeing in cities all over the country, to your point, some peaceful protests, but also some violent encounters, some looting, some community destruction. What have you heard from your constituents about all of this? What are the people in your ward feeling? What are they saying to you?
I have such an array of community, from our seniors to our millennials and the Gen X's. So as it relates to our seniors, who experienced the 1968 riots. But then some 50, 60 plus years ago, it was not televised. It wasn't social media. So the immediate kind of live and upfront footage wasn't available, but they told us stories of how this reminded them and the trauma that they endured with actually seeing what happened in their own community and how this happened citywide and not just in a certain demographic in 68. Small businesses, just like the country, have been affected, our Black and Brown businesses. Our community has struggled just like the country. We've been hit the hardest when we think of the businesses and lack of investment or disinvestment and lack of resources and access to quality health services, even getting tested for COVID. Black and brown people are essential workers. That was an issue, and it's still an issue, and that's why we are doing the best we can in getting more COVID testing sites. I launched actually the first one for the new city Englewood back of the yards community in May, before it was as popular for COVID testing sites, with the help of our legislators at Access Health. So that was a victory, a new state of the art where they literally had to build out a state of the art COVID testing site. So we're doing all that we can to ensure that everyone knows to keep wearing your mask, follow city and state guidelines, practice social distancing, because our goal is to flatten the curve, but we really want to bend the curve and make a true statement and get those resources and investments that we need in our community. Great question, Valerie. Thank you.
And so maybe give the listeners and viewers an example of a couple of the small businesses in your ward. What are you hearing from some of those owners? What are they dealing with? What are they struggling with?
Okay, so I'm going to use two businesses that I'm happy in the 16th ward that I was a part of with their grand opening. Our very first insurance agency, Price Insurance Agency on 63rd and Ashland. We just opened her office right before Christmas. So our first insurance office, let me make this clear, our very first Black-owned insurance agency in the Englewood community just opened in December. So the referrals, and we were sending people and really giving the message of getting life insurance and making investments now for your family. And when COVID hit, just the transaction of the client to agent relationship, she had to think very quickly and to virtually have an office and to virtually retain the attention of those clients. Unfortunately, shootings happen in our community, and then that's when it's unfortunate that we have to go through unfortunate situations in order to get the picture and really think about the future, really think about setting aside monies to take care of your family and the what ifs. So that's one example of a business, a small business that was affected tremendously by COVID. Englewood Branded, which is an all Englewood merchandising store. So all of the paraphernalia of Englewood Pride and I Am Englewood, he was affected because it's a boutique. And with businesses being closed and not having, again, the interaction with your customers and seeing the new merchandise, if you will, and the new design. So he had to quickly change his strategy to Instagram and online shopping. Resources, that's why supporting our small businesses and some of the initiatives that the city has kind of put in place with the $10 million investment has been so important in our community, especially as it relates to the business community.
That's awesome. I think it'd probably be quite interesting for folks viewing to understand how you've seen people in the community come together in the past few months, just in the face of all of this. What are you seeing your constituents doing? How are you seeing them come together, support each other, work together? Can you share a few of those stories that you've seen?
Yeah, so many organizations have stepped up with food distribution, with diaper and wipes for new mothers when the looting happened, and we didn't have any stores in our community where we had to travel at least 6 or 7 miles just to get some milk or bread in an already quarantined state. So food distribution for seniors in our ward that were not able to go to stores even before the looting. So many organizations just stepped up to even get their tests. We did multiple mass distributions in our community with the help of so many organizations like Rage, Iman, Imagine Englewood, IF, the Greater Southwest Organizing Project, the Greater Southwest CDC. And really, it wasn't just an Englewood thing, it was a Chicago line and back of the yards in New City. And that's why that unity in our community, we weren't worried about borders and boundaries, Englewood versus Chicago line, or if you were on Ashland versus Western. We crossed lines and everyone came together and helped one another out. We even had massive community cleanups, and we're still cleaning up. We're doing a cleanup this Friday of people from all over the city. Valerie, I met young people from Elgin, from a little town. They traveled 2 hours to help us clean. Young council came all the way to West Englewood to help us clean up vacant lots and some of the Black and brown businesses that were looted. So it's just been a beautiful camaraderie and of unity for our neighborhood.
That is awesome to hear. I've heard it said, and maybe others have too, that the great movements in societies have been led by young people. Talk a little bit about what role you've seen young people playing in some of the things that you've just described, and what role you see them playing in this potential broader movement towards social change. Can you talk about the young people in your community?
Yeah, young people are definitely leading the fight to equality in this country, and in the 16th Ward. I have an amazing group of young activists. Now, we kind of go back and forth because they say I'm not a real millennial, although I'm a real millennial, but they were born in the 90s, so they say I'm old, whatever that means. But they have taken on the streets in peaceful protests. They have, unfortunately, I lost the 1-year-old baby Sincere on 60th and Halsted, and all of the young leaders and young activists joined me on that block as we were just kind of pleading to the community, please, if you see something, say something. If you know something, say something. We had to get justice for this baby's life. His life should not have been taken because of senseless acts of gun violence, because kids get a hold of guns and they don't know how to shoot. And a baby's life was taken, a baby who could have been the next alderman, who could have been the next vice president of Roosevelt, who could have been the next board member and success story of Roosevelt. So there are moments like this where I really applaud our young people for stepping up, and they are making the change that is necessary and being those change agents in our community. And it's a great feeling to see young people at the head and coming together. It really shows great unity.
That's fantastic. So glad to know that that's what's happening. So let's talk a little bit about the city. Kind of, you're an alderman representing a swath of the city. When you think about the city, what steps do you think the city could take to start to address some of the disparities and the discrimination that have now been made really a lot more visible, so that Chicagoans are really all offered genuine opportunity for them to succeed? What kinds of things do you envision the city could do?
You know what? Equality, investment, and opportunity.
Uh-oh, I think we're frozen here.
Zoning and rezoning and looking at ordinances is a great way to push investors to invest in our community, not creating barriers or roadblocks for investors to actually open up businesses like edible arrangements or dry cleaners or major retailers or anchor retailers in our community, not only for pre-construction opportunity, but post-construction opportunity, supervisors, managers, sale reps, security to landscaping. These are all opportunities that we don't get, like downtown in River North and the Gold Coast have, you know, kind of at their fingertips. Even seeing more minority contractors receiving their fair share at city contracts. Our procurement program needs an upgrade. There are only 25% city contractors required for minority contractors, and that's not fair. And I look forward to working with my colleagues in the city council to finding solutions to bridging the gap. And when we really talk about investment and the disinvestment, we need to start on the subject of who's actually building in our community and what opportunities are there for those investments in our community.
Those sound like great conversations to have. And I think, again, with what's going on today, from healthcare disparities to protests that are really shining a light on everything from inequality, police brutality, how do you think those will shape future policy in Chicago? How do you think the things that are happening will really shape policy development for Chicago?
The city has to hold itself accountable for what's happening in our community. Our schools must be fully funded. Our judicial system must treat our residents with equality. Police accountability and reform must happen now. There's so many organizations and ordinances, again, that have kind of come out of this situation. So CPAC, the defunding police has been, you know, kind of a headline right now. Even when we think about service officers in our schools, and really shaping the narrative of what we're doing for the next generation, and preventing some of those disparities and those social injustices from happening as we're shaping the future.
I think everyone's excited to see how that future policy work starts to play out. I think we all see a very strong and no-nonsense mayor, and with great aldermen like you, I think we are all very hopeful that what's happening now is the backdrop for great policy conversations. So I'm going to switch gears here, and let's talk a little bit about education. You are, as noted in your bio, a strong proponent of education that's important to you for a variety of reasons. Let's talk about how your experience at Robert Morris shaped your development as both a community leader and now representative of the 16th Ward, alderman there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my experience at RMU was amazing. I remember the ongoing theme was team building. There were lots of team projects. My first probably 3 or 5 quarters, a lot of team building and working with my colleagues and working with other students. And I remember team building was a huge theme. But this experience will live with me forever. I can remember people like Angela, and there was a woman by the name of Pinky. I don't even know if she's still there, and Eddie, who helped me throughout my, higher education, collegiate experience. And those are the people that I value and remember because they were rooting for me. They wanted me to win. They didn't want me to get discouraged because I found a roadblock where I didn't understand. So those resources and just those helpful daily encouragement and motivators were there for me. And that's the culture that makes the difference when receiving your higher education, that you have the support system, taking the initiative to helping one another, no matter how big or small. That is what I value most about RMU and my experience. It was really, again, community and the culture of you can do it, you can make it, and I did it. Graduated at the age of 19 from RMU, which is major. First generation to complete my higher education.
Awesome. So what makes higher education so valuable to young people who maybe want to think about how they can improve their communities? Talk a little bit about the connection of what that educational foundation or educational background gave you and would give them in the context of wanting to work to see community change.
Yeah, so when people ask, and Valerie, when we even started the conversation, well, what made you run for office, or what made you want to be a community leader? I always found myself somehow in a student government or in some type of organizing group or some type of organization. I even remember projects where I would lean more so on the political side or the constitutional side of things, because I had lots of questions, and my business law class was one of my favorite classes at RMU. As a matter of fact, I'm still thinking about law school because of that class. And what higher education provided for me was the skills and knowledge that I use to this day, some 10 years later, 10, 12 years later, and leading and guiding my community, and those skills that were instilled in me at RMU, and even when I received my master's of leadership, and knowing how to be a leader, how to, the same motivation and encouragement that I received at RMU, I give to the 16th Ward now. How to give hope when we're feeling hopeless. What do I say to my constituents when we're in the news because of something devastating, but then focus on the good that is still happening in our community, and really changing that narrative and being that change agent and being the change that I want to see. It was instilled in me in RMU, and 12 years later, here we are today.
That's fantastic. What advice would you give to students and alumni, many who are probably watching this today with us, who are interested in becoming a community leader like you? What kinds of tips would you suggest? How would you guide them on a path to getting started?
Well, in addition to completing your degree at Roosevelt and this great merger, if you want to be involved, just get involved. Identify what it is that you're passionate about. If it's youth and education, if it's seniors, if it's wanting to clean your community, or getting involved with the Black Lives Matter movement, with kind of the community policing. Find out what it is that you're most passionate about and just start there. Get involved. Google what's going on in your direct neighborhood. I often say, I want to save the world, but first I have to save my own block. Starting a block club organization, cleaning up your own block. And if that's not your narrative, starting a neighborhood association where you address some of the issues that affect your direct vicinity, whether it's the 2-block north and south, east and west vicinity of you. Just starting somewhere. Everyone has a gift and talents that they can offer this world. And everyone's a leader. And I want everyone who's listening, who wants to be that leader and who wants to be that agent of change, that you can do it. We're all leaders. We all have people that we influence, whether that's through social media, this wonderful tool that we use, We all have those God-given talents, and it's up to you to just ignite them and use them, and you can do it.
Okay. I think that is fantastic advice, and I think we're now ready to open it up to some questions. Let's hear what the folks that have been listening and kind of hearing Alderman Coleman's story and what she shared. What kinds of questions can we answer for you live? As a reminder, we want to be sure that questions are in the Q&A function and not the chat function, so that we can see them and respond. And so it looks like our first question is really about Englewood and what the greatest need is in Englewood. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The greatest need in Englewood is investment, more opportunities for small businesses, for Black and brown businesses to have in our community, more quality housing, more investment. Valerie, it's unfortunate that that officers, and as when I think about police brutality, which has gone on for years, and it's unfortunate that now the world is seeing it because it's being recorded. But when I think about my community, there are injustices that aren't being recorded that we live through every day. Lack of investment, lack of having the opportunity at generational wealth, lack of social services, lack of financial resources and financial institutions that are willing to give our people opportunities at generational wealth to being homeowners. There are only 23% homeowners in the Englewood community. I believe that the recent study, Chase Bank only allotted 2% of the financial services and mortgaging in the Englewood community. We have to address those injustices that aren't being recorded that we live through every day. So addressing the disinvestment, and I like to highlight just some of the great things that we are doing. We're working on phase 2 of our Englewood Square. A lot of people know about the Whole Foods and the Starbucks and Chipotle in Englewood, where we're working towards building more opportunity for those small businesses that I mentioned. I don't have a dry cleaners in my community. I don't have any place I can get flowers for one of my seniors. We don't have, we need more financial institutions, more social service agencies, more mental health, more of the tools that, because there are so many undiagnosed mental health cases in our community. So these are just some of the basic, because I am the quality of life. That's my job, to ensure that the quality of life for my community is there. Those are some of the things that we're working on, and those are some of the things that's needed in Englewood.
Okay. So I'm going to take a question that relates to that, that says, should we depend on investors, or should this become a community movement to fund the neighborhood? And maybe in the context of the types of investments or things that you'd love to see be visible, how would you best envision those types of things happening or coming together?
Wow, that's a great question. It definitely is going to take community. But when I think of the transition of, let's say, a Cabrini Green, for example, it took community input. It took community planning. It took a comprehensive plan with leaders, not only on the local level, but with the legislature and the federal, all coming together to create opportunity for quality housing, for quality businesses. It also took 23 years. And Valerie, we don't have 23 years in Englewood. We don't have a long time to really transform and see the investment. In addition to, yes, investment is needed, but we can't do it without community input and without community involvement in shaping. I can't certain businesses wouldn't make sense in Englewood that it would make sense, you know, in another community. So that's why a neighborhood impact is so important in involving residents and those stakeholders that have weathered the storm with us, that have seen Englewood at its highest when we were once the second shopping district other than State Street. And I say we're rising together, but we can only rise if we're in this together. That's why community is so important.
Two questions that are, I think, interesting in this space to your point. One person saying that they want to start a tutoring program in Englewood in order to build a stronger math foundation. What kind of advice would you give that person to help start that tutoring program for kids in Englewood?
Well, you can definitely contact our office at 773-306-1981, shameless plug. We will definitely welcome any and all those ideas and resources and connect this wonderful participant with some of the youth programs that are already happening in Englewood and building those partnerships with what we already have. And we can always use more. The need for more is there. The need of helping more people is there. I often say, if I can just help one or two, I know that my living isn't in vain. And it's when you make that difference and you change the life and the trajectory of one person, and to see them transform and being the best that they can be. As it relates to math, one of the reasons why I ran is because we didn't have any STEM programs in my community. While other neighborhoods and other schools, our neighboring schools did, our children were not introduced to this STEM curriculum. And I like to report that we have 2 STEM schools now. So thank you. We need more of that science, technology, engineering, and math, because that is the future. And we have to equip our children now so that they can be competitive in the workforce later.
Okay, let's make sure you give that phone number one more time, and even an email if you want to do that.
Yeah, or you can visit us at www.16thward.org. 773-306-1981. You can always contact our office at email info@16thward.org. We're on social media. We're easy to find and easy to get in contact with. Okay. Very accessible.
Another related question that says, greetings, I'm the CEO of Albany Child Care Center in Chicago Lawn, so I think a constituent, recently opened this week and would like to know if there are any upcoming events in person or virtual in the area where we can meet prospective families or other small businesses. So kind of what is the Alderman's office doing maybe to facilitate how other small businesses meet each other or help the small business owners actually get some grounding? It sounds like that's the question.
Yeah, so we work with the Greater Southwest. I don't know if the participant is familiar with the Greater Southwest Community Development Corps, which is right at 63rd and Tallman over in Chicago Lawn, as well as SWAP, which is a little bit further west on 63rd around California. We've been working with getting some virtual meetings together. Chicago Lawn was one of the communities that was hit with the looting with Marquette Bank and Chase Bank and the stores on 63rd Street. So we had BACP out, Superintendent Brown, to really, it's one thing to see it on TV, but to see it in person, right? To witness the aftermath of things. So I would love to get our participants from Albany. Did I hear Albany? What was the organization?
Albany Child Care Center.
Yeah, I would love to connect and see about doing more.
All right. Here's another question about that relates to housing. So what are some of the programs and resources available to local residents to purchase or invest in local housing? Some of the properties are being purchased by outside investors and resold at much higher prices in the community. So what are some resources available for local residents to purchase or invest in their local housing stock?
Lots of programs, not only with the city, but there's the Cook County Land Bank, because that has been an issue. I have inherited even finding some of the buildings that should have been demolished, and we have discovered that the owners were registered in Hong Kong, Valerie, right in Englewood and Chicagoland, and addresses in LA and Texas, and people have purchased land, have forgotten that they have it, I guess a part of their portfolio, and have not taken care of it. So there's an organization called Gage, and they have a series of Buy the Block. So getting involved in being a homeowner, from financial literacy to credit, to preparing yourself for home ownership, a collaboration with CHA, Englewood and Chicagoland, and Gage Park. They all have representatives that help with just getting yourself prepared and their inventory, if you will, for home ownership. And again, we have to create opportunities ourselves as it relates to not having roadblocks and barriers of home ownership, and financial institutions that are willing to give Black and Brown people an opportunity at home ownership. That's a major, bigger discussion, and kind of a bigger lens that we have to take a look at.
And probably a related question, how do you invest in the community and build up infrastructure without gentrifying it? All too often, community enrichment comes at the price of the members of the community can't afford. How do you make sure that the members of the community are retained to reap the benefits of that kind of improved housing stock, improved infrastructure, improvements in community?
Yeah, that's why I often say we want to revitalize, but we have to stabilize what we have. And those community leaders and those, I'm the daughter of Englewood because I'm a third generation of Englewood born, bred in my community. So those grandmothers and empowering that their children's children, my generation, that are now up for those home ownership opportunities. And again, the concept of buying the block. That's why programs like the lot adjacent, because we have a lot of vacant lots. So there's a lot adjacent program where if you have a home and there are 2 vacant lots, that homeowner is able to get the deed to their lot. So if they decide that they want to create a community garden, if they want to create just a space for their block, if they want to eventually, hey, maybe one day build a home, but they have the land, because we're empowering our people to buy the block, be the saviors of our community, because I want to save the world, but first I have to save my block. And if you just look around, your own front door and see what's going on. And really, my job is to make sure that we don't have those barriers for those community residents that have been in our community, that have stayed in our community, that want to do more in our community and are willing to further invest, that we create opportunities for them.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. There's a question from the mother of a police officer in the 7th District, which is, I think, your district. She wants to hear a little bit about your collaboration down the pipeline with CPD, particularly the 7th District, and your thoughts on defunding CPD.
Well, let me just say this. I am very biased to 7th District Englewood, because we have the best commander, Larry Snelling. We have the best officers, men and women, who I am just impressed with. And I had a recent incident, if I can just tell my story. On the 4th of July weekend, there was a nonviolent at 1 a.m. on my block in particular, a young man with a mental health issue. And he had a breakdown. And these men and women from 7th District and from Engine 116, our Chicago Fire Department, they were so passionate, they were so compassionate, they were so calm, and they really, a situation that could have went totally in an opposite direction, they made sure that he knew that they were not there to attack him, they were there to help him. They were there to help him change that situation around. And just the patience that they had, it took them about an hour to calm this young man down, to take him to the hospital. But we have one of the best districts in the city of Chicago. District 7 and 11, we get a bad rep in media because we're the South Side, we're Englewood and the West Side, but there are so many great women and men there serving and protecting us at 7th District. Now, as it relates to defunding police, because that is a headline, that isn't my narrative right now. I cannot imagine my community without those great officers that are serving and protecting us, especially in 7th District Englewood. However, if that were the narrative, if we were not, victims of shootings on weekends, if that were the narrative, we definitely have to look at our budget and investing in social services, more social services, like the young man, a nonviolent offense, and making sure that he has the tools and resources to help him address those issues and being the best citizen that he can be. So right now, as it relates to defunding police, that isn't my narrative right now in my community.
Okay. And maybe an aligned question. So what are some other steps to take to actually change the narrative in communities with challenges? How do we make sure that we're showing different things other than the things that are being seen and heard about the community? How do we change that narrative?
Well, great question. One of the things, if I may just address the 4th of July weekend, we did something that had never been done with the help of 7th District Englewood. I asked for Gage Security and Detective Agency to assist us because, Valerie, we can't police our way out of years and years of devastation and disparities in our community. We have to build the trust with our officers again, because we do have officer friendly in our community. So I asked for Gage Security and Detective Agency, and I asked for the community groups that are the violence interrupters, those that are out at 2 and 3 in the morning preventing the bloodbaths from happening. See, those are the stories and the narratives that aren't told. They don't make the news. The fact that we have men and women out at 3 o'clock in the morning, like Target Area Group, like Iman, some of the representatives from Chicago Cred, and those violence action groups that are doing the work, but those stories aren't being told. I see them out sometimes when I'm surveying the neighborhood at 2 and 3 in the morning. So we brought this group collectively together and worked with 7th District to merely monitor and observe. And that was one of many steps that we're taking we included our faith-based community, our business community, those organizations, and our neighbors. And the message was, if you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to just be outside and monitor and observe what's happening on your own block. And we received great feedback. It was a success in spite of kind of an incident that happened on last Saturday. It was a great success and a great step in the right direction of really coming together and assisting 7th District and not policing and over policing our way out of it, because that's not the solution. We have to support what we have. We have to support our 7th District leaders and not bring in officers from all over that don't know our community to police our community.
Great insight. Changing course a little bit. So what future programs or initiatives in Englewood are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about, we have Green on Racine, I'm so excited about, we're getting another quality grocery store in our community with the collaboration of Inner City Muslim Action Network, Residents Association of Greater Englewood, Teamwork Englewood, and a collaborative called E.G. Wood at 63rd and Racine. They are also finalists of the Chicago Prize, one of 6 finalists for an opportunity at a $10 million development investment of private funding. I am so excited that out of all of there were so many applicants, like over a couple of hundreds, Englewood is a finalist, one of 6 finalists. And this Go Green on Racine is an initiative that Racine is a street that we have schools, we have neighborhood parks, work, live, and entertain. It's our street. There was once a Green Line station there. So we're looking at the opportunity of reopening that for a more transient infrastructure for Racine Street. The co-op, grocery store, market. There's a vacant school that we'd like to see become a location for trades and a community health clinic. Again, addressing the issues that the lack of resources to healthcare, to quality healthcare, a housing program, having just a great street from 57th all the way to 67th and Racine. So that is an initiative that I'm so excited about happening in Englewood. More small businesses. We're going to have our first mixed-use development at 62nd and Halsted, right next to the big development on 63rd, where we're ensuring and we're having space so that small businesses, if you can't afford the brick and mortar right away, but you have an opportunity at doing a pop-up, right? If your business is anything from Black History Month till your child has a lemonade stand, that you'll have an opportunity as showcasing your goods and services in our community. 102 units, so quality housing, a market, and affordable rates. So those are just some of the great things that are happening.
And so I'll ask this question because I feel like it's connected. How can allies who live outside of the 16th Ward support the neighborhood on a day-to-day basis?
Sign up for our newsletter, get involved. Whatever your niche is, whatever your talent is, and whatever you're passionate about, we need it all in the 16th Ward. So we can only, I am as effective as my community and our supporters make us. So please, I welcome and value everyone's time, everyone's resources, and those talents. And I often say your time is one of the most precious gifts that you can give anyone. So come on, we accept it all in the 16th Ward. Go to info at 16thward.org and let us know what it is that you're passionate about and what you'd like to help us with. And we're here to serve.
I think that also speaks to the question that is about how community members can help. It sounds like community members can help in that same way. Would that be what you would suggest?
Absolutely.
All right. We have another question that kind of allows us to switch gears a little bit. When you reflect on what we talked about with young people and social movements, what do you see as being the most effective way to engage today's youth in social movements, especially in voting, as many of them often say my single vote can't make a difference, right? As an alderman, as someone who's run for public office, how would you suggest engaging young people in the social movement, and even engaging them, ensuring that they understand that their vote matters?
Everyone votes matters. Let me just tell, in 2015, when I ran for office, I lost by 76 votes. So if anyone says my vote doesn't matter, I beg to differ. Everyone votes matter. This movement with our young people, and with the general election approaching, and with census approaching us, and with especially in the Englewood community with our numbers, we're performing at about 40% right now because of COVID and the less than interaction to do the door-to-door outreach. But if we just share on social media, if we go to the protests, if we clean up, none of that matters if your rights aren't being used, and that's going to that ballot or going to that box or doing your mail-in ballot. It means nothing, because that's truly when your voice is heard. We have an interesting character down there in DC, and their decisions, especially in the city of Chicago, but there are leaders that we must put in place to ensure that we are protected and that our rights are protected, that we are getting the resources on a federal level, at a state level, even on a local level. And your vote is what makes a difference. I just ask that everyone, please fill out your census. It takes 10 minutes. Everyone counts. Your vote counts, but your presence, your existence counts. Every person, I believe it's $1,500 per year for the next 10 years. That's how funding and resources is determined, because of our numbers, our counts, our districts, our remapping. It's all determined on your vote and you counting. So your newborn baby counts, your grandmother counts, your niece and nephew counts, that millennial with the big mouth, they count. Everyone counts. I just want to impress upon everyone, because we're all leaders and we all have leadership skills and to influence others. So please get out to vote. November 3rd, I believe, is the election. You have to vote. We have to. People died for our rights to vote.
And with the minute or so that we have left, probably one last question, and then at the end of it, it probably would make sense to repeat the website and the email and the phone number. So how can people make a donation to local community centers in your area? Is it financial? Is it food? Is it clothing? Is it books? What's needed?
What's needed? All of the above. Again, what you said, Valerie, from support to organizations. We have amazing organizations, so many that our office can connect others with, whether if it's youth in education, whether if it's community food distribution, whether if it's helping seniors, if it's helping with economic development, joining task force, being a part of the quality of life groups, from public safety to the housing, to just being change agents. So many great things happening in the 16th Ward community. So we welcome and value anyone willing and able to help us out. You can go to www.16thward.org, contact our office, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, where we share so much information, and we're helping so many people with different resources. Our monthly community meetings, which pains me that we haven't been able to have because of COVID. So we're working our way around when life kind of settles, when we can gather large people, because our meetings were 200 and 300 well attended from all over our community. Yeah, so I'm excited to maybe do some things virtually, but being cognitive of our seniors that don't have the access to the digital divide, another issue in our community. But yeah, please follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, and we're more than happy to accept those God-given talents to really be the change in our community.
All right, and I think that's the last question, though I do think that there's a question in the queue about monthly community meetings, and it sounds like those will be reinstituted. So the questions around that can probably be answered by following on social channels or reaching out to the Alderman's office. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to Alderman Coleman, I think, for a fantastic kind of time with her, and turn it back over to Angela and Christy to close us out.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, Alderman Coleman, thank you so much just for sharing all that you're doing in the community. Your passion for your community, I think, is evident here. In addition to some of the questions that came in, there were comments about just how inspiring you are in the work that you're doing. I think we can all see that and hear that. So just hearing from what some of the young activists are doing in your community, to some of the community groups that you partner with, and with your leadership, I can feel that Englewood will continue to rise. So thank you so much for your time, for your willingness to come speak to us today. And Valerie, thank you so much for leading this amazing discussion. I appreciate it. It was a wonderful hour. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful, beautiful week. Bye, everyone.